Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the DJ Sessions presents the Virtual Sessions. I'm your host Darren, and right now I'm sitting in the virtual studio up in Seattle, Washington, and on the other end we have Gordon Firemark, attorney at law. How you doing today, Gordon?
I'm good, Darren. It's great to see you again. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was going over your bio before the show, doing a little research on you. You've been in the industry like from the ground up, and then got into law, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I got involved in theatrical sound and lighting when I was in high school, and actually even earlier than that. But that sort of led me into college, where I studied theater first, and then moved into radio, TV, and film. And law school reared its ugly head only after I had graduated from college and was working in the television business when the Writers Guild went on strike. Kind of reminiscent of what's going on in the world today. So.
Definitely wanted to kind of talk with you a little bit about that.
Yeah.
How are I was reading up on the on the follow ups today, just looking at some different websites, just researching that and seeing they call it that no both of them is it WAG and
No,
SAG
the
are now both
WGA is
the
the Writers
WGA
Guild,
Writers
and
Guild.
SAG-AFTRA is the actors and performers. Yeah,
Yeah, but both of them are striking, aren't they?
that's right. Yeah,
That's never been done before. That's never happened. They say,
I
or maybe it
think there
was.
was one other time, 50 years ago or something,
Yeah,
where they were both out at the same time.
that's
But
what I
yeah.
think it said 65 years ago or something like
hmm
that.
hmm
That's just crazy. What's
Yeah.
the tension like down there? You're in LA, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't see the tension on the streets day to day unless
Oh,
you're going into or out of the movie studios or something like that. But
mhm.
you definitely see the picketers from time to time when you buzz by those places, and they are um, upset about obviously pay wages and rates of pay, but also about streaming has become the new way we consume our content,
Mhm.
and the owners of the streaming services, they really don't like sharing data with the creators that are part of their production. So you don't know how many times are they watching that rerun, or is something showing. Or in television, you used to be able to track reruns. You can't
Mhm.
do that with streams. And because there's some compensation that's tied to that secondary performances of shows and things, the actors and the writers, both squads, want access to some more information so they can figure out what they should be getting.
Yeah.
Residuals is the term that's for those payments. And as streaming has come in, the amount of residuals has really dropped off precipitously, to the point where some of these creators can't afford to feed themselves just on what they make in that. And so I promise you don't want the star of your movie to have to go to their job and serve coffee as a barista in the evenings.
Yeah.
you know but anyway, so that's one of the big issues. And
That was
the
one of the
AI.
biggest things when we first started doing my podcast series back in 2005.
hmm
Um, we got prominently placed on the front page of the Apple podcast section in the video content section.
yep.
We debuted at like number 48 and then ended up climbing up to position 23. But all of us in that whole section there, it was a whole brand new thing because the video iPod had just come out.
Yeah.
And the questions we couldn't answer because there were no Nielsen ratings or Arbitron ratings or
Right.
any way to measure that. You could say, okay, this file, this is how much data was transferred. You
hmm
can't tell how long somebody watched a show for, if they watched it for two
right.
minutes or 30 minutes, if they watched the whole thing. There were
And
some
in those
tricks
days, it was
we're
still a
doing.
download of the content, so
Mm-hmm,
you could tell whether it was downloaded. The
mm-hmm,
stream, again, you can't tell how long they watch. Now the streamers actually do know how long you watch. They
mm-hmm.
just don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah, I've definitely put some traction on Netflix over the years,
hmm
watching shows that I watch probably religiously every
Sure.
once or twice a year. So, where is your take on AI and all of this? Is that a major point that they're discussing as well?
It is. It's a very hot issue, both for the writers and the actors. On the writers' side, they're very worried that tools like ChatGPT will be developed, or are being developed, and will be used essentially to put writers out of work. If a producer can say, I've got a great idea for a show, it's got these characters, and here's what goes on, write me a script where Johnny falls down a well and Lassie saves him. next thing you know, you've got actors performing in script. There was no writing involved, no screenwriter involved. So the Writers Guild wants to make sure that there is employment for writers, and that in the television world where there used to be a writer's room of 10 or 12 people, that it'll still be a reasonable number of people working, and not one person and a AI computer. So that's the writer's side. On the actor's side, the concern is, hey, if we can digitize the actors' images and the sound of their voice, well, we don't need to hire them the second time or the third or the fourth, and we don't need to pay them residuals for work that they didn't actually do. And so the producers have floated some proposals that seem to be pointed in the direction of that kind of, once we scan you, we own you, and we can do anything we want. And the actors, of course, are, no, that's not how we want to do things. And so that's a big issue.
Yeah, and I was reading up somewhere, if you're an extra, they can use your digital image and likeness forever and ever and ever and ever. You sign away that right, and then they don't really need to hire extras anymore.
Well, exactly right. And
or as many extras.
Well, yeah, hire you once and put you in 12 different costumes, and all of a sudden you're the crowd of people back there. That's one possibility. Yep. It's not just the extras. I mean, the producers seem to be saying, we want to be able to negotiate this in all of our contracts. And the performers are saying, well, no, we don't want even that to be a possibility, because, when it comes down to the bargaining power, if you're confronted with that, what are you going to do? Are you going to just say no and not take the job? So they want to make sure it's just sort of forbidden altogether, or nearly altogether. So,
and tell us a little bit about the Legal Survival Guide, and why is it important for people to read it?
Well, my book is called The Podcast Blog and New Media Producers Legal Survival Guide, and I wrote it quite some time now ago, as sort of scratching my own itch. I needed to figure out, where does the law differ in podcasting and digital media from the more traditional film, theater, television, music arenas? And so I sat down and was doing the research, and I thought, well, I'll turn this into a little book. And it's an ebook that I put out, and it's available for folks who are creating stuff in this space. It shares information with them about business structures, and whether you need an LLC or a corporation for what you're doing, and how copyrights work, how you become to be an owner of a copyright, but also how you go about using other people's copyrighted material. Talks about trademarks, talks about defamation, libel, and slander. Really, the goal was to sort of arm creators with the basic knowledge of knowing when to ask a question, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's available at podcastlawbook.com.
It's so funny you bring that up. 23 years ago to the date, I worked on a broadcast pilot talk show series. And I don't know if I talked to you about this last time, but I quickly was an overglorified production assistant that quickly became an associate producer. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Barnes and Noble and picked out 2 books. I think one was The Business of Television, and there's another big thick one too, a big thick book. And I went to my producer at the time. I said, hey, everything in these books are telling me we got to get some stuff on pen and paper, because we could produce this whole series and then be cut out from it, or we get no points, or, he's going to take our work that's going to pay us nickels and dimes for, and then go pitch it to the studios. And we're the one that launched that series. We should have some say in this. Yeah. And the guy I was working with at the time, I actually stopped working with him. Still my best friend. I've known him for 30 years. But, it was like, everywhere was contract, and putting everything down on pen and paper. And that's where I first learned about sync rights and master use rights for music, and all that stuff. Like I was so funny. So we were doing a shoot over at one of the Seattle Supersonics' house. He wasn't talking to the press. He was getting fined like $25,000 a day or something for not talking to the press or something like that. And Shane, the guy who was the host of the series, knew him because he had a limousine company. And so he got this exclusive interview with Vin Baker from the Seattle Supersonics, but there was not supposed to be one basketball question asked in the interview.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, it was really interesting. But one of the things I remember that I did is we had Sprite cans on the countertops. Mm-hmm. And I go, I'm not giving Sprite free advertising, so put gaff tape on all the cans.
Right.
And I've done that with like certain DJ equipment manufacturers. Their attitude is, we're already in every photograph. Why don't we don't need to sponsor? And I'm
Right.
like, right, okay, great.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of interesting. But here's something I read on your site too. And this was the title, I believe it's Influencers. Could
Yeah.
you be liable for trademark infringement? California court says yes. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm not remembering the specifics of the case in question, but yeah, if you are out there disseminating a message that creates a deception or a false impression that there's a relationship or an endorsement or something like that with a brand, um, yeah, you could be infringing that brand's trademarks. If you certainly if you call your show the Coca-Cola Cast or something like that. But yeah, there's a handful of other scenarios where influencers really need to be careful that they're not saying let's say someone's doing a promotional message about a particular product and they say, yeah, this is just like brand X, only better. Well, you may or may not have violated the rules there. So it's really important to kind of know the parameters.
Yeah, it was 2018. I went back. I had an issue with a DJ,
Hmm.
and what had happened is I saw that there was an event. I told these people to go on Eventbrite, and you can find our tickets there. Just look up the DJ sessions,
Yeah.
and well, lo and behold, this bar pops up down in about 40 miles from where I live, and there was a guy who went by the name DJ Sessions, but he spelled it Deejay
Hmm.
Sessions. But on the calendar for the nightclub, they put the letter D and the letter J
Yeah.
Sessions. So I reached out to him. He didn't get back to me. And so I go, wait a second, he doesn't control the bar's website. So why don't I call the bar and see if it's just a typo? Because I didn't
Hmm.
want anyone
Hmm.
taking my name and using it. I had somebody do this once before too with the DJ sessions. They called
Yeah.
their event the DJ sessions. And I
Hmm.
said, you need to take that down right now, or I'll be sending you a cease and desist.
Yeah.
And so it was this whole little battle thing that we
Yeah.
did online. The guy tried putting me on blast and
Hmm.
talking mad crazy about me. And that's when I just said, screw it. I went and trademarked the name the DJ sessions.
Yeah.
And,
And truthfully,
why?
that sound alike with the DEEJAY is still an infringement of because it sounds just like it. There's going to be confusion.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that's what kind of concerned me. So, after talking, I can't remember who I talked with, but because he was using it almost like a few months before we started
yeah.
the show, the DJ sessions, I can't go after him or send him for a cease and desist.
Yeah. First to get to the marketplace gets to keep it, basically.
Yeah.
So,
But
um,
moving forward, I
mhm.
know that I'm protected. And I did see somebody the other, like, we already have a company where
Yeah.
this is this. Here's our business tax information or our EIN to prove that we're a company, and here's the trademark record. This
Mhm.
thing was $50 for like 5 years or something like that. I think it's coming around for the corner for renewal
Oh,
now that I think about it, because I did it in
interesting.
2018.
There you go.
So here's a question about forming a company and filing for an LLC or corporation. What's so important about that as a creator?
Well, having a company structure can serve a lot of purposes for any kind of an enterprise. I think that if you're in the creative businesses, you're taking some risks that are inherent in the fact of you're making content, you're talking about people, you're talking about brands, all these kinds of things we've already talked about, and you might be infringing a copyright or a trademark without really knowing, and so on. So liability protection. One of the things about an LLC, which stands for limited liability company, is that it shields its owners, the members of the company, from personal liability for things that happen in the business. So
Hmm.
that's the main reason that we lawyers recommend creators starting a company. There are other reasons. You want to have a structure as between the various owners of the company, who's in charge of what, who gets how much, those kinds of things. What are the rights and responsibilities? And in that regard, it acts sort of like a prenup between the parties.
Mhm.
It can have tax advantages. Companies can take deductions for things that ordinary humans can't. And then there's some street cred. And you can also, if you need to, you can sell shares of a company, membership interests, or shares of stock to raise funds for the company to capitalize it. So lots of good reasons to do it
Mhm.
that have to be outweighed or that have to be weighed against the cost of creating and operating the thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've told people this for years. Just go. I mean, in Washington State, it's only like $300 or $325 to file for an LLC. And if a DJ's out there and they're playing a show, or somebody trips on the equipment and knocks it on their foot, and I think we're a tri. You can sue three people in the same claim or something. I can't remember what that's called. Like, you can
If
sue
you've
the
got
bar, you can
27
sue the
people
DJ.
who are responsible, you could sue
Yeah,
all 27.
all 27.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of concern. Look, the LLC can be a help in that, but even more important in those situations is insurance, because you want someone else to swoop in and just take over and hire the lawyers and do the defense in a situation like that. But
Yeah, I was going to ask you about how important is it for a creative to get E&O insurance?
boy, the lawyer in me wants to say it's tremendously important, and the pragmatic creator says, and it's almost impossible to do at an affordable price. So
Yeah.
once again, we're balancing cost and benefit. That insurance can be really valuable. Now, if you're a DJ and you're going out and doing setups and gigs, there are specific insurance policies that cover the slip and fall. The copyrights, the trademarks, the defamation, this stuff is very high risk, very high cost if you do infringe, and so the policy premiums are accordingly high and often out of reach for creators. It's all a function of budget.
So I saw something else on your site when I was reading today. Tell me about Taco Tuesday and the complications surrounding the use of it, because that I thought that was just a generic open term.
So that's what a lot of people thought, and that's actually what Taco Bell and LeBron James thought eventually. So the backstory is that a number of years ago, a bar in New Jersey started calling its Tuesday night promotion Taco Tuesday, and they claimed trademark ownership at the same time, or so. I don't exactly know the details, but this other outfit in, I think, Iowa, named Taco John's, started doing promotions called Taco Tuesday, and they registered a trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and it went through and it was valid. It was whatever, but it became so widely used by others, not policed by these owners of the trademarks, that the position became, well, everybody's already using it. Why should we, Taco Bell, be at risk that you're going to sue us when you've basically let everybody else in the world do it? So they went out and started making noise about this. And LeBron, who is, I guess, a taco lover, and I guess he's a spokesman for Taco Bell or something, he got involved in this as well. And they filed a petition with the court or the trademark office to cancel that trademark. And as of earlier this week, or maybe last week, Taco John's, the bigger one that controls 49 of the 50 states, they have settled the case. Well, they've just agreed not to respond to the case and that it'll be dismissed as between them. And they're going to give up their trademark. The guy in New Jersey seems to be putting up a fight, but we'll see how long that goes on. I think that it's, one of the rules about trademarks is when you own a brand, you have to do what you can to protect and police it against all infringers, or else at some point you are held to have lost your rights. So
yeah, that's huge. And then when it gets so big and widely used, does it ever become public domain, or what would be the determining? Would somebody have to take it to court?
Yeah,
and then
there is this
fight it?
idea that so to back up, trademarks protect distinctive words and symbols and phrases, marks that are distinctive and identify the source or origin of the goods. So you have a brand that that is recognizable as a secondary meaning to the consumer. They see that thing, they know where it's coming from. Red triangle on a box of crackers tells you it's coming from Nabisco. The Coca-Cola logo, the Coca-Cola swoosh, the Nike swoosh, excuse me, the Amazon smile logo, all of these things are very distinctive marks. A word can become so well known and widely used that it becomes generic, and that's called genericide.
Genericide.
So and there have been a few of these. The word cellophane was originally a trademark. It is now a generic term for transparent cellulose wrapping material. Escalator for moving staircases. Aspirin for that particular kind of acetylsalicylic acid compound. And so it's very important that trademark owners do their best to make sure they don't run afoul of this genericide. So you have brands like Band-Aid or Kleenex that have to worry about this, because you need a tissue, you ask for Kleenex, right? You need a adhesive bandage, you ask for a Band-Aid. In the 80s, Xerox did a whole
Xerox.
advertising
I was
campaign
just going to bring that
saying,
up.
basically, if the machine doesn't say Xerox, what you're holding is a photocopy. That kind of thing. There's a really funny, I commend it to you. If you are interested in this stuff at all, head over to YouTube and search Velcro Lawyers. And you will
Oh,
find there are 2 music videos that the Velcro legal team have put together to talk about, it's hook and loop unless it's made by us, and then it's Velcro, that kind of thing. So
wow.
hook and loop fastener is the generic term. Velcro is the brand name. And they're being cautious not to lose control of that distinctiveness.
I do remember hearing about rollerblade was another one.
Yeah,
Rollerblade got so widely used that you bought your rollerblades, but they could be Bauer or they could be K2, or
yeah,
rollerblade
and
lost their market share
yeah.
because of
Again,
that.
the generic term was inline skates,
Yeah, inline
and
skates. Yeah.
and rollerblade. I think rollerblade managed to pull the bacon out of the fire a little bit, but that it hurts. It's hard to recover from those kinds of things.
Yeah. And speaking about legal stuff, the podcast law forms, I saw that on your website as
Yeah.
well. Can we talk a little bit about that and tell us what that is and how
Well,
it's
if you
beneficial?
don't mind, I'll back up a little bit. I'll just,
Oh, yeah.
my mission as a lawyer in this industry, entertainment and media law, as the podcast lawyer, is to help creators protect themselves and have their influence and income and achieve the kind of impact that they want. And I recognize, as a lawyer, I'm a done for you. People hire me to do things for them. But I recognize that there's this whole other category of folks who can't or won't hire a lawyer for whatever reason, usually economic, but other reasons as well. But they still know that they've got to get some of these legal things done, and I wanted to make them tools that would allow that to happen. So I've created a bunch of legal forms and templates for the creative community, mostly podcasters, but YouTubers and video creators can use this stuff too. And you can go in there and either buy a bundle of my legal forms or buy them a la carte for, I think, very affordable prices. And if you need a contract for a videographer who's going to shoot with you one day, there's something there for you. If you want to hire a co-host for your show, something there for you that way as well. And for the folks that are sort of in the middle who want those forms and templates, but also feel like they want a little more instruction and coaching on how to make it happen, I have a whole course called Easy Legal for Podcasters that really teaches you everything you need to know about forming that entity, registering your copyrights and trademarks, bringing on onboarding your team so you make sure you own everything you think you own. That podcast prenup I referred to a little earlier, and the deals with your sponsors and advertisers if that's how you're monetizing. So everything for everybody is my goal.
That's awesome. You bring that up. And you mentioned also that you do a podcast series. You're known as a podcast lawyer. Why is doing a podcast so important to you? And is there something for everyone out there? It seems like
Well,
after pandemic happened, everyone jumped online.
yeah.
And
I've been podcasting since 2009. I started with my show Entertainment Law Update. Just earlier today, we recorded our 159th monthly episode. So we've been at it
congrats
a
on
good
that.
long time. Yeah. And that show is really about me and my co-host positioning ourselves as experts in the field of entertainment law. And we're talking to other lawyers, mostly other entertainment lawyers with that show, really sharing details about what the courts have decided and what the rationales and reasonings were and what the ramifications will be going forward, those kinds of things. And it's been great marketing for us. Even though we're talking to our competition, there's a lot of referrals that happen because someone has a conflict or doesn't understand a particular issue as well or whatever. And so my co-host and I have benefited greatly from that. And we keep doing the show until we can't anymore. The other show that I do is called Legit Podcast Pro, and it's really targeted at the creator community, where each Thursday afternoon I do it as a live stream on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn, but then I record it and it's saved as an audio podcast as well. Just a 10 or 15 minute one topic, one tip for creators on what they need to know about protecting themselves, get more of that free content and stuff. And again, that positions me as the expert, as a helper, and builds goodwill, gets people thinking about When they need a lawyer, they think about me instead of that other guy down the street.
It's funny you bring that up because I was doing the live streaming. I started live streaming in 2000. I was podcast. We still podcast, but we started live streaming in 2009, and everyone knew me around Seattle, around the town, because we were mostly local stuff, as the live streaming guy, the guy who's been doing this for so long. So when Pandy hit, my phone just rang off the hook. My emails were flooding.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what kind of cameras do I get? What do I do this? How come Facebook can't pay the cost for the music and license it? They got billions of dollars. You know, I'm answering these questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, people go get a book. Go get a book. This is where I would direct them to, would be your book and your law forms to go. Because some people just in LA, I'm sure it's a common thing. You get a contract, you might have an entertainment attorney, the lawyer that looks it over for you.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. But here up in Washington, we're not a heavy entertainment market up here. So when I present like a personal release form to somebody and they don't understand, yes, I need to get this form, because if I don't get a form from you, I could spend all this money on production and then you come back and say, nope, take that down.
Yeah.
Or I'm taking you to court. And I'm like, I just did thousands of dollars worth of work, all my editing time, putting all this together. And then I've only had one person, maybe two people in my past. There was a girl once, she says, I didn't like the way my makeup looked. And I'm like, okay,
should have thought of that before we recorded the review.
Yeah, right. and then there was one time where a DJ's like, I didn't like that set. Can you take that episode down? I'm like, all right.
Oh, interesting.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the nice thing about having the contract, having a release form that's signed, and that's one of my crusades, is everybody should have every guest should sign a piece of paper. I call it safe guest, kind of like safe sex. Use it every time or else. But the nice thing about having that document is then it puts the decision in your hands. You aren't going to be held up by the extortion of, if you don't do it, I'm going to take you to court, because you say, go ahead, I've got a contract. But you still can take it down if it's the right thing to do. If her makeup really was a botched mess, you could take it down, or the set was bad, or there was something in the set that shouldn't have been. You know, it gives you flexibility. It gives you ownership and authority over these things, and that's what's really important as a creator.
Yeah, I think I have 5 different agreements that I have my resident DJ sign. I have like a non-disclosure. Don't tell anyone about our company information. I have a code of conduct agreement.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all there in black and white. If somebody says you didn't live up to your part, Darren, so
yeah,
that's why. And I go, it was right there in black and white. It told you what was going to happen. It told you how you get terminated if you don't follow through with these things. And that way people know. There's a service agreement in there. I think there's a limited liability waiver form in there. We do some kind of crazy stuff.
You know, the saying goes, good fences make good neighbors. Yeah. And I would say that good contracts make good business associates as well.
Yeah. And I've been using these forms since 2000. Okay. Yeah, they're pretty standard to read and pretty industry. I think they should be industry standard. You know, you get a lot of DJs in the music biz that get screwed over by producers, not producers, by promoters.
Yeah.
You know, that don't pay them or don't pay them on time, or, you know, they have to drag tooth and nail to get $150 that they were owed, $100 that they were owed. And it's almost at that point you've spent 10 hours on it. You just made $10 an hour, you know?
Right.
And so it's funny because some people will shy away from agreements because they don't want to be held liable. And if I said, here's my contract, and somebody says, I'm not signing that. I had somebody, I actually pitched it. I wanted to put him under NDA because I was going to pitch him my idea for a show. Yeah. And he goes, tell me your idea for my show. And he ran a production company. I'm like, sign my NDA.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to let you come up, pitch a show to you. And then you say, hey, that's a really good idea. Let's go make the show.
Right.
That would happen.
That's actually an interesting catch-22 in the entertainment industry, because a lot of creators are afraid to share their information with the producers because the producers might steal it, and the producers are afraid to accept it without some kind of a release, or the inverse of an NDA. Really, it's a promise that I'm not going to sue you if you do use what I present to you. And so, there's just a lot of that back and forth. NDAs are uncommon. They're more common nowadays than they were 20, 30 years ago, but they're still pretty uncommon in the idea submission arena because, you know, there are so many ideas out there and everybody's just tossing them around. So,
and now AI is going to be tossing all those ideas around.
Oh, yeah, game changer, I think. Yeah.
I mean, I played with ChatGPT once. And I said, um, "Write me a bio for Darren Bruce, the executive producer of the DJ Sessions."
Hmm.
It was 98% spot on accurate.
Oh, that's interesting.
The only thing that it wasn't true, is that it said I owned a record label. That was just one little blurb, and owns a record
Yeah.
label. And
Oh,
I don't know
interesting.
where they would pull that information from, because nowhere says owning a record label.
Well, these tools
But
hallucinate. They make it up.
yeah,
I will tell you that I had the opposite experience. I asked it to write a Wikipedia entry about me, and it got my college, my law school, where I live, my age, and my credentials basically wrong. Better than they actually are in some ways. And so I don't have a lot of trust for the tools. I will say that I use them, and I've you can train them, and they get better. But there have been a number of situations where that hallucination has been a problem. There are a couple lawsuits going on right now. Just on my podcast today, we were talking about one where two people with basically the same name, one uses his middle name and the other doesn't. The plaintiff in the case is this person who is a professor, an author, and an artist, and the other person was actually convicted of assisting the Taliban, and they were conflated into one person in this report from it was Bing. If you search this name, you would get, how they do that summary now, and it's not just links to existing articles, and it just got it wrong. Said that they were one and the same person. And yeah,
wow.
so who do you sue is the next question. So this guy's suing Microsoft, claiming, hey, you made this machine, you set it in motion, it got it wrong, it harmed my reputation, it's still up there, it's been months since I told you, take it down. And Microsoft, they've got their legal defenses to bring forward, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah,
So
I remember. I don't think it wasn't Chat GPT, but I was in school a few years ago,
mhm.
and my teacher was teaching a business class, and we got into the Microsoft Office suite
Yeah,
product that go in the cloud, and it has all like the 20 different things
yeah,
that you got in there. There was one in there. He said, "Watch this. I'm going to type in." I think he typed in like airplane book report something, and it went out and made a whole presentation on
yeah,
airplanes. It grabbed text, that put the text in there. It grabbed links, put the links in there, grabbed photos, and it just,
yeah.
like, you hit the button and it compiles the whole thing for you. And I don't know if that was like the beginning of AI or the first grants. I can't remember
Yeah,
what that
this
program's
tech has
called.
been brewing and cooking for a few years now, and a few years ago, I remember using a similar tool to create a PowerPoint presentation for a class I
Hmm.
was going to teach, and
Hmm.
it worked out okay, not great, and it's just getting better. The trouble is when it gets to be indistinguishable from human input, and actually, if you another fun one is if you go search for Johnny Cash Barbie Girl, you can hear Johnny singing Barbie Girl. And Johnny ain't alive anymore. He did not record it, but it sure sounds like him.
That's crazy. I was just going to bring that up about music.
Yeah.
If I wanted to become a music producer, I could
Mhm.
say, okay, I want music created. I want it to be 4 minutes long.
Mhm.
I want it to be an ambient, down chill beat.
Mhm.
And I've talked to a lot of producers about this, and the one thing that they're not going to get is soul.
Yeah.
The soul, the soul of the musician in there. Even
Yeah.
the soul in the music. You're not going to
Mhm.
get that, but you could. How would you know if somebody's just sitting there and they're ghostwriting a song for somebody, and they just put it through
Right.
AI and said, "Here's the song, and here's go put it into Logic or Ableton, and you
Yeah.
can manipulate, change it around." But this song was really created by a computer.
Yeah. These tools are really amazingly powerful.
Mhm.
And I think the soul is, you're right. There is no ghost in the machine. So
Mhm.
the soul is the thing that's missing. And hopefully we as humans will be able to detect it most of the time. But boy, it's getting tighter and tighter, narrower gaps between what you can tell and what you can't. I'll tell you, in the law, trying to catch up or keep up with this kind of stuff, there have been a lot of issues around whether the material that comes out of the AI machine is copyrightable, and the courts and the copyright office here in the states at least seem to be saying no. The AI generated stuff, you have a human author. If it's not human authored, it's not protectable. So then we get into, well, how much effort and creativity went into crafting the prompt that generated the thing, and and assembling it and all that. Well, yeah. So use these tools to your detriment. If let's say you use one to write lyrics for a song about who knows what, you may not be able to stop anybody else from using those same lyrics in their song.
Yeah, I think there was this. I saw a TED talk, and there was these two guys that they were talking kind of music theory and
Hmm.
saying how all the melodies out there are like copyrighted and owned by this person, owned
Yeah.
by that person. They made them, and then they took all the ones that because there's only so many arrangements of notes that we put in a certain
Yeah, it's a
order.
finite number. If you have
Yeah.
12 notes in the chromatic scale,
Hmm.
you can only combine it a certain number of ways.
Yeah, and they went and actually, I think they put out there on the copyright, the free copyright website.
Yeah.
They got it, they applied for it, and they put it in and made it for free use. That was
Oh,
kind of their big
interesting.
crescendo. But it's all mismatched melodies, just
Yeah.
the ones that people want. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. But hey, Gordon, we're going to wrap up here. Is there anything else you want to let our DJ Sessions fans know about?
Well, I think we've thank you for the opportunity to share about
Yeah.
my book and my form site websites and all that. Really, everything, the clearinghouse for everything is my website at gordonfiremark.com. That's where everything that isn't my direct done for you legal services stuff is found. And come check it out and see if there's something there that serves you. And feel free to reach out if there's not. And if you need something special that I might be able to help with, I'd be delighted to know.
Are you able to practice? I know some states, when you pass the bar, you're able to practice law in other states. Is California one of those states?
So California, no, mostly it's licensed state by state. There are a
Okay.
few states that have reciprocal relationships for one reason or another, but I'm licensed in the state of California. I'm licensed in the federal courts nationwide. So as long as it has some nexus with the areas of law that touch the federal system, copyrights, trademarks, patents,
Mm,
or that has a nexus with the state of California, like the company you're doing business with, the entities are located here or something,
gotcha.
then I can help you out. So.
Awesome. Well, again, Gordon, pleasure having you on the show. Always fun,
Darren, it's
and
been great.
always learn stuff. So we'll let you get going here, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Good to see
You're
you.
welcome. Yeah. Don't forget to go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on Facebook, Meta, Threads. I haven't even got down to that one yet. Another social media platform, Instagram, TikTok. We're out there. Thedjsessions.com. Make sure you get those contracts signed. And remember, on the DJ Sessions, the music never stops.